The husky had been howling at the toddler every morning for 6 days. Her mother, a trained EMT, was certain the dog had become unstable. She had no idea what she was actually listening to. 6 days of the same thing, and nobody could explain it. Every morning, between 6:45 and 7:15 a.m., the moment 2-year-old Isla came downstairs, the husky started, not barking, howling, a long undulating vocalization that bounced off the kitchen walls and sent Isla grabbing for her mother's leg with both hands. The dog did not lunge, did not snap, showed no aggression. He sat at the bottom of the stairs and pointed his muzzle upward and produced a sound that filled the room completely. Kira Sundstrom was a career EMT. 13 years of emergency response. She had run more medical calls than she could count. She had assessed thousands of scenes and reached hundreds of conclusions and been wrong a number of times that she could track on one hand. She thought she knew what behavioral dysregulation in a working breed looked like. She thought she understood what was happening. She was wrong in a way that would take a cardiologist to explain. Ghost was a 4-year-old Siberian husky with ice blue eyes and the kind of vocal range that neighbors 2 houses down had mentioned twice. He was not a quiet dog. He had howled at sirens, at certain commercials, at the ice maker when it dropped a new load. He was expressive, communicative, the kind of dog that seemed to have opinions about everything. He had never howled at Isla before, not once in 2 years of living with her. The first morning, Kira had attributed it to the new schedule. Isla had started waking earlier. The house rhythm had shifted. She redirected Ghost to the backyard and went about the morning. The howling resumed through the sliding glass door the moment Isla appeared at the kitchen table. The second morning, Kira asked her mother, who was visiting for the week, if she had noticed anything unusual about Isla's behavior or energy. Her mother said she seemed tired. Kids get tired, Kira said, and filed it away. The third morning, her husband Darian woke up early for the first time and stood in the kitchen doorway watching. Ghost sat at the base of the stairs, eyes locked on Isla, and howled 3 times in slow succession, each one lower in pitch than the last. Darian looked at his wife. "That's not normal," Kira said. "I know." What she could not have named because she didn't have the vocabulary for it yet was that Isla's color was slightly wrong, not pale. Something between pale and flat, the particular undertone that in her EMT training she had only ever learned to recognize in adults. She had never considered looking for it in a 2-year-old. The fourth morning, Isla sat down at the table and picked up her cup and put it down again without drinking. She did this twice. Ghost moved from the base of the stairs to the kitchen floor, positioned himself under the table directly below Isla's chair, and howled once. Short, low, different from the previous mornings. A single note that didn't carry the way the others had. Something concentrated, something pointed directly upward toward the child above him. Kira sat down on the floor next to her daughter. She said, "Isla, how do you feel?" Isla said, "My tummy has butterflies." Kira pressed the back of her hand to the girl's forehead. No fever. She looked at her daughter's face for a long moment, and then stood up and got her kit from the hall closet and checked Isla's pulse oximeter out of habit. The reading she got back made her sit down again. 91%. In a 2-year-old at rest, it should have been 97 or above. She called their pediatrician. Their pediatrician, Dr. Warren Callis, said come in now. They were at the clinic by 8 a.m. The EKG that Dr. Callis ordered showed what no one in the family had known was there. An electrical irregularity in Isla's heart, a pattern of intermittent arrhythmia that had been generating subtle drops in her blood oxygen saturation each morning, not continuously, but in episodes, each one short enough to go unnoticed by anyone not looking for it. Each episode corresponded with the time of morning when Isla's body transitioned from sleep to activity, when her cardiovascular system was asked to shift registers. Each episode corresponded exactly with the time Ghost started howling. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The pediatric cardiologist who reviewed Isla's case was Dr. Adana Mireku at the Regional Children's Center. She sat with them on the second appointment and asked about the dog's behavior pattern in detail. Darian walked her through each morning. Dr. Mireku listened and said, Dogs have been documented responding to heart rhythm changes through a combination of olfactory and auditory sensitivity. The electrical activity of the heart produces micro vibrations that propagate through the body. Dogs detect them. The howling you're describing, the specific timing, the escalation pattern, the difference in pitch on the morning of the lowest reading, that tracks with alert behavior we've documented in cases where dogs have detected arrhythmia. She looked at Kira directly. Your EMT training taught you what oxygen deprivation looks like in adults. You hadn't been trained to look for it in your own 2-year-old. He was the one looking. Isla started a treatment protocol at 2 years and 4 months. Her oxygen saturation normalized within 2 weeks. The morning howling stopped on day 3 of her medication. Not gradually, completely. One morning it was there. The next it wasn't. Ghost ate his breakfast and went to his bed and slept. Has your dog ever done something you couldn't explain until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Kira found him on the kitchen floor that evening, with his chin on his front paws, watching the spot where Isla always sat for dinner. She sat down on the floor beside him, the way she had done beside countless patients in 13 years of emergency response. She put her hand on his side and felt him breathe. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If these stories matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Isla is 3 now. She wears a small cardiac monitor clipped to her waistband during the day. She calls it her little button. Ghost sleeps at the foot of her bed every night because the monitors can malfunction, and he is not willing to rely on the assumption that they won't. The next story involves a dog whose behavior during bath time was called threatening by a visiting family member, 4 days before the child's first seizure.